Chapter 1. The Prophecy and the Protectors. The scent of pine needles and male pheromones was the first thing to punch Jessa in the face. One moment, she was staring at an overpriced latte menu in a city cafe. The next, she was being shoved into a drafty cabin, her hands bound with thick, scratchy rope. "I haven't even finished my macchiato," she cried, stumbling over a wolf-hide rug. An elder, a tiny, wrinkled woman whose eyes held the cold wisdom of glaciers, stepped forward. "Your comfort is no longer your priority, child. You are the Luna. The prophecy is fulfilled. You are here to stop the bloodshed." Jessa shook her head, terrified and disoriented. "Luna, I'm Jessa. I work in HR. I just want to go home." "Home is here," a voice rumbled, deep and heavy, from the shadows. A man stepped into the light and Jessa's breath hitched. This was Ryker. He was colossal, defined by harsh, chiseled edges and a commanding presence that swallowed the air in the room. He was dressed in rough leather and denim, and his gold-flecked eyes were cold with scrutiny and annoyance. The scent of him, sharp winter musk and alpha dominance, was so potent it made her knees weak. "I am Ryker, alpha in training," he announced, his voice devoid of warmth. "And I don't believe in prophecies, particularly those that require a soft human female to save us." "She is fated, Ryker," the elder snapped. Ryker ignored the elder, staring only at Jessa. "You're weak, useless, but if the law says you're the key, then you are mine to protect. Learn your place, Luna, quickly." A soft, mitigating voice cut through the tension. "Don't scare her, Ryker. She's just arrived." Liam emerged from the kitchen doorway, holding a steaming mug. He was the visual opposite of Ryker, tall and broad, but with gentle, comforting curves of muscle, a kind smile, and eyes the warm brown of rich soil. He smelled of rain and warm bread. "I'm Liam the beta," he said, walking straight to Jessa and gently cutting the rope from her wrists, his touch surprisingly tender. "Don't listen to him. He's just mad he can't fight fate. We're happy you're here, Jessa. You'll bring the calm we need." Liam's presence was a palpable relief, a warm anchor in the room. Jessa felt an immediate, illogical urge to lean against him, to trust his kindness. But the moment his fingers brushed her pulse point, a dizzying jolt of mutual devotion sparked between them, making her gasp. Before she could process the warmth, the third presence made itself known. He hadn't moved. He was still standing silently by the dark stone fireplace, blending into the shadows. This was Dax, the warrior. His clothes were the same functional leather as Ryker's, but his posture was different, tense, coiled, ready to strike. A nasty scar pulled the corner of his mouth into a permanent sneer, and his eyes were the startling, flat gray of a stormy sky. He smelled of earth, iron, and danger. Dax did not speak. He simply crossed the room in two predator-like strides, bypassed Liam, and placed one large, calloused hand on Jessa's shoulder. It was a possessive, silent claim, the subtle pressure telling her he was not only watching her, but watching them. He was her shield, and she was his sole focus. The scent that rose from him, a primal, raw, and terrifying need, made Jessa's breath catch. He looked wounded, and she suddenly felt the overwhelming, powerful urge to heal him. Ryker's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Dax, back off. I'll handle the orientation." Dax didn't flinch. He simply met Ryker's gaze, a low, challenging rumble vibrating in his chest, before turning his attention back to Jessa. It was a silent assertion. "She is mine, too." Jessa stood between her three protectors, Ryker, the demanding dominance, Liam, the offering tenderness, and Dax, the watchful primal protection. The sheer sensory overload, the clashing musk of three separate, powerful alpha-class wolves, made her head spin. The elder had said she would unite the pack. How could she unite anyone when her mind, body, and soul were being pulled in three impossible directions at once? Jessa looked at the expectant faces of the wolves. She was the Luna, the key, the prize, and she was absolutely, terrifyingly claimed by all three. Chapter 2. Coexisting in the Den. The Alpha's den was a spacious, rustic cabin built from massive timber logs. It had been cleared of the former Luna's possessions, but it had not been cleaned of the pack's history. It felt cold and large, too large for one woman, but far too small for Jessa and her 3 massive, territorial protectors. Reese had insisted on placing a single, queen-sized bed in the main room for Jessa. The protectors had claimed their own spaces. Ryker commandeered the small, adjoining office, treating the desk like a command center. Liam set up a sleeping pad by the hearth, filling the living area with the comforting smell of his presence. Dax was the most unsettling. He simply took the small landing outside her bedroom door, turning a simple patch of floor into a silent, unmoving guard post. The enforced proximity was immediate and suffocating. That evening, Jessa was trying to unpack her meager bag of city clothes. Ryker walked past her every 10 minutes, checking the perimeter and asserting his superior claim to the space. Liam stood in the kitchen, casually making a pot of tea and humming softly, an intentional, soothing presence. Dax remained a stone sentinel, his stillness radiating intensity. "You should eat, Luna," Ryker commanded, leaning against the door frame, watching her with a proprietary stare. "You need strength for tomorrow's training." "I'm not hungry," Jessa mumbled, holding a threadbare city sweater like a shield. "You will eat what Liam prepared," Ryker corrected, his voice a low threat. "Your health is pack property." Liam, sensing the friction, stepped in smoothly, bringing her a bowl of fragrant stew. "Don't mind Ryker, Jessa. He only knows how to give orders. I made enough for everyone. Please sit." His gesture was an offering, not a demand, and the difference made Jessa gravitate toward him. As she sat, Dax finally moved. He walked into the kitchen, his gray eyes fixing on the stew. He wasn't looking at the food, he was looking at Liam's proximity to Jessa. Without a word, Dax picked up the remaining pot and carried it to his spot outside the door, consuming his meal there. It was a clear, non-verbal message. I eat near her, but I won't share their space. The next morning, the training began. Ryker had devised a program focused on pure physical dominance and pack discipline. "A Luna must command respect," Ryker growled, pushing her into a wall of pine logs during a hand-to-hand drill. He was rough, testing her limits, forcing her to rely on his strength to stop the impact. "You need to learn that only my authority keeps you safe." Jessa's heart hammered, fueled by a mixture of terror and white-hot adrenaline. She could feel the heat radiating off his body, the scent of his excitement, and the sheer, overwhelming power of his alpha shift pressing down on her. The lesson was effective, but the lines between training and sheer dominance were dangerously blurred. Later that afternoon, exhausted and bruised, Jessa retreated to the bath. She heard a soft knock. "Jessa, it's Liam, can I come in?" Relieved for a moment of gentleness, she opened the door. Liam held a jar of soothing herbal salve. "Ryker's a brute, you'll need this." He sat her down and began to gently work the salve into the tender bruises on her arms. His touch was an antidote to Ryker's aggression, slow, careful, and deeply comforting. "You don't have to choose Ryker's way, Jessa," Liam murmured, his warm brown eyes filled with sincere adoration. "My strength is in support. I'll always be your foundation." He finished applying the salve and brought his face close, his scent enveloping her. The silent promise in his eyes was intoxicating, a future built on warmth and mutual care. This time, the spark of devotion between them felt like a gentle, irresistible wave. Just as Liam leaned in, prepared to deepen the moment, the air outside the window cracked. Dax was there, standing with his back to the cabin, sharpening a massive hunting knife on a whetstone. The metallic shick-shick-shick was deliberately loud, a warning, a physical barrier erected between the Luna and the Beta. Dax didn't look at them, but the intensity of his presence was a clear, jealous reprimand. He hadn't seen the gentleness, he had only sensed a rival claiming territory. Liam sighed, his moment broken. "He's protective," he muttered, standing up. "He's been watching the borders for a long time, they both have." As Liam left, Dax finally turned. His eyes met Jessa's through the glass, hard, gray, and possessive. His expression said everything. "No one touches what is mine without my full attention." The raw, primal current of their bond, the urgent need for protection and healing, was stronger than the scent of the salve. Jessa shivered, realizing that while Ryker claimed her with demands and Liam with kindness, Dax claimed her with relentless, silent surveillance. She was safe, yes, but she was never, ever alone. Chapter 3. The Scent of the Enemy. The uneasy truce in the Alpha Den shattered late that afternoon. A frantic, injured wolf dragged himself past Dax at the door, bleeding from a deep gash on his flank. The scent of spilled blood and ozone instantly filled the cabin, and the three protectors shifted instantly from jealous lovers to focused warriors. Ryker was the first to react, roaring a string of commands as he dropped to examine the scout. Liam was right behind him, his calmness shifting into immediate medical triage, barking for linens and healing herbs. Dax didn't move toward the injured wolf. He moved toward Jessa, positioning himself between her and the sudden intrusion of danger. "Sela's," the scout choked out, his eyes wide with fear. "He set a trap near the old river bend. He sent a message, Alpha. He wants her." Ryker's gold eyes flared, his wolf barely contained. "What message?" "He marked our trees with his scent, stronger than ever, and he left a gift, a dead deer, with Luna runes carved into its hide." A wave of cold dread washed over Jessa. This wasn't just a territorial dispute, it was a personal threat against her. "He's trying to provoke a fight he thinks we can't afford," Liam observed, applying a poultice with rapid, steady hands. "He knows our ranks are thinned." "Then we strike first," Ryker snarled. "We show him the Luna is protected by an Alpha who doesn't tolerate insolence." "And risk losing more men," Jessa finally spoke, her voice surprisingly steady. The terror was still there, but a new feeling, a cold, logical resolve, had risen to meet it. "Sela's wants a fight. If we rush out there, we'll lose half the pack." Ryker turned on her, his dominant energy surging. "You will not question my command, human. You are not a strategist, you are a symbol." Jessa met his glare. She felt the familiar urge to submit to his raw power, but she fought it down. Instead, she concentrated on the tangled emotions in the room, the fear, the rage, and the desperate anxiety. It felt like a pulsing, discordant static. Instinctively, she reached out with her mind, focusing on the calm center Liam radiated. She took that soothing energy and pushed it subtly, gently, into the air around Ryker. The effect was immediate and astonishing. Ryker's harsh, dominant scent softened, and the rigid tension around his jaw eased ever so slightly. He didn't relax completely, but the blinding fury was replaced by a cold, calculating analysis. "Silence," Ryker said, the command still strong but directed at his inner wolf, not her. He looked at Jessa, suspicion in his eyes. "What did you do?" "I asked for clarity," Jessa lied easily, refusing to admit to the magic she'd used. "Sela's has wounded your men and tainted your territory. He is making a power play that requires strategy, not rage." Liam, who had felt the wave of inexplicable calm just as clearly, nodded, a look of awe replacing the stress on his face. "Jessa is right. We need to secure our weak points. The border patrol is useless until the territory is cleansed of Sela's aggressive markers." "That requires scent masking and a warding ritual," Ryker countered, skeptical. "Magic." "It requires the Luna," Liam corrected, his voice firm as he looked at Jessa, his devotion deepening into profound belief. "Your magic can cleanse this without a fight, Jessa. You are the counterforce to Sela's darkness." Ryker looked between Liam's fervent belief and Jessa's determined calm. He hated the idea of using magic, but he couldn't deny the sudden clarity of the situation. Before he could answer, Dax spoke for the first time since her arrival. His voice was a low rasp, unused and unsettling. "I go with her, no one else." His eyes were locked on Jessa, a fierce, silent testament to his protective mandate. He didn't care about strategy, he cared only about her safety during the ritual. Ryker looked at his two protectors, one offering emotional support and spiritual belief, the other offering silent, lethal defense. He was the Alpha, but he was forced to rely on the witch who calmed him and the two mates who challenged him. "Fine," Ryker finally conceded, glaring at Jessa. "You will go out at dawn, and you will take them both. If Silas gets 1 inch closer to you, I will drag every one of you back myself. Jessa felt a chill, not of fear, but of anticipation. She was about to step into the woods with 2 of her intensely possessive mates, on a mission that would force her to reveal her true power. This was her first true test as the Luna. Chapter 4. The Cleansing Run. The forest at dawn was a study in silver and shadow, the air cold and damp with mist. Jessa felt utterly exposed. She was flanked by Liam on her left, his presence a beacon of calm strength, and Dax on her right, a silent, lethal shadow that seemed to melt into the trees. Ryker had remained at the compound, his parting words ringing in her ears. "You fail to return before nightfall, Luna, and I will assume you defected." His distrust was a raw wound, but it fueled Jessa's resolve to prove her worth. Their mission was to follow the scent trail of the blight, the subtle, magical corruption left by Alpha Silas, and use Jessa's Luna power to cleanse it. Liam had given her a pouch of dried herbs to carry, saying it would act as a conductor for her energy. "The blight is strongest here," Liam whispered, pointing to a patch of moss that looked sickly gray, not green. "It smells like fear and possessiveness. Silas is trying to make our borders hostile to our own pack." Jessa kneeled, placing her hands on the cold earth. She closed her eyes, ignoring the intense, conflicting sense of the 2 wolves standing over her. She reached into herself, past the human fear, past the Luna's confusion, and found the deep, quiet well of magical energy she'd only ever used instinctively before. She channeled the energy through the herbs in her hand and into the soil. It was like pouring clear water into stagnant mud. A gentle wave of clean, natural power pulsed outward. The gray moss instantly began to shimmer with healthy green. "Amazing," Liam murmured, utterly captivated, his devotion surging through the mate bond. He reached out and gently stroked her hair, a reward for her success. The intimate moment was immediately shattered by Dax. He let out a low, guttural warning, not a wolf's growl, but a sound of human distress. He hadn't seen the blight or the cleansing. He had only seen a rival male touching his Luna. Dax grabbed Jessa's arm, his grip hard, and pulled her roughly to her feet, placing her directly behind his broad, scarred back. He positioned his body between her and Liam, a clear assertion of physical dominance and primal jealousy. "We move," Dax rasped, his eyes flashing gray fire at Liam. "Not safe here, too slow." "Dax, we have to follow the trail," Liam protested, but he respected the warrior's boundary. Jessa, however, was done being moved like a pawn. She stepped out from behind Dax, placing a hand on his tense, coiled arm. "I decide the pace, Dax. My power, my timing." The touch on his arm was deliberate, a boundary and an offering. Dax instantly stilled. His feral scent softened, and he slowly, reluctantly released her arm. His gray eyes, full of that deep-seated need for healing and protection, fixed entirely on her face. They continued the work, moving deeper into the woods. Jessa worked methodically, leaving a trail of cleansed, vibrant earth behind her. At midday, they stopped by a rushing stream. Liam insisted Jessa eat, offering her dried meat and a full canteen. "You're pouring out a massive amount of energy, Jessa. You have to replenish." As she ate, Liam sat close, talking to her about the pack's history, not its laws, but its hopes and fears, drawing her into his gentle world. Their bond deepened through shared trust and quiet companionship. Dax, meanwhile, was perched 20 feet up in a giant redwood, silent and observant, maintaining his vigil. He wasn't participating in the comfort, but he wasn't far. He was the perpetual sentry. Suddenly, Dax dropped from the tree, landing with the grace of a falling stone. "Reese," he announced, his eyes narrowed at the western ridge. Before Liam could react, Ryker burst into the clearing. He was in a full-blown alpha rage, his scent heavy with raw fury. "You are late," Ryker thundered, ignoring Liam and Dax. He went straight for Jessa, grabbing her shoulders. "You failed to check in. I thought Silas had taken you. Do you understand the chaos you caused?" "We were working," Jessa retorted, bristling at his aggressive tone. "The blight is retreating." Ryker didn't listen. His concern, wrapped in his dominant rage, was a desperate fear for her. He pulled her against his chest, crushing her in a possessive hug. The moment was less romantic, more an assertion of ownership driven by panic. "Never," Ryker snarled into her hair. "Never be out of my sight that long again. You are my only shot at saving this pack. You belong where I can watch you." His raw, dominant claim flooded her senses, triggering a deep, powerful submission in her wolf side that she desperately fought against. Then Dax and Liam stepped forward in chilling, unified anger, both pulling weapons, Dax's knife, Liam a heavy piece of fallen branch. The two mates were suddenly united, not against Sela's, but against their own Alpha's brutality. "She is not a prisoner, Alpha," Liam said, his voice hard despite his gentle nature. Dax simply stood there, knife ready, a clear challenge in his eyes. "Touch her like that again, and you'll have a fight." Ryker looked at the fury of his beta and his warrior, both of whom were risking everything to defend the woman he had just claimed. The possessiveness in the clearing was explosive, triple-layered, and deeply complex. He was caught. He released Jessa, stepping back with a furious snarl of frustration. He knew, instinctively, that if he took one more step toward her with aggression, he would have to fight both his brothers. "We go back now," Rhys commanded, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. "The cleansing is done for today. You will all remain within the den's walls until I decide otherwise." Jessa, surrounded by three furious, possessive, and wildly powerful mates, felt a flicker of hope. She hadn't chosen one, but she had commanded the attention of all three, and in doing so, had forced them to act together. She was slowly learning how to be the Luna they all needed. Chapter 5. The Hidden Trauma. The night after the cleansing run was thick with a volatile, shared energy. Ryker had stalked into the Alpha suite and immediately sealed himself in the adjoining office, his frustration radiating through the thin wood door. Liam had occupied the hearth, tending the fire with a worried frown, his usual lightness dimmed by the day's conflict. Jessa couldn't sleep. The conflicting sense of anger, worry, and possessive desire were overwhelming. She needed air and space away from the three suffocating bonds. Slipping out of the main room, she found the only place that felt quiet, the small, unused back storage shed. She was surprised to find Dax there. He wasn't guarding. He was sitting alone on an overturned crate, using a small, specialized kit to suture a nasty silver burn on his forearm, an injury he hadn't allowed anyone to see. He didn't flinch or look up when she entered. The scent of him was different here, less of the protective iron, more of raw, unmasked pain and the metallic bite of silver. "Alpha's orders," he rasped, his voice low and strained. "You're supposed to be in bed." "And you're supposed to be guarding my door," Jessa countered softly, kneeling a respectful distance away. "Silver is pack poison, Dax. Why are you treating that alone?" Dax finally looked up, his scarred face a mask of weary resignation. "It's my burden, not the Luna's." Jessa ignored the rejection. She moved closer, her healing instinct overriding her fear. She didn't have the Witch Luna magic for this. She used her human sense of care. She gently took the kit from his shaking hand. "A good Luna heals her pack, Dax. Let me see." As her cool fingers touched the burning wound, Dax hissed, not from pain, but from shock. The simple, non-magical, caring contact seemed to pierce his ironclad control. "It wasn't Silas's doing," Dax admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "The scar on my face, the reason I'm the warrior, not a beta. Years ago, I disobeyed a command to save a pup. The former Alpha, Ryker's father, punished me with silver. It scarred my skin and my rank. It burns me still sometimes, a reminder of my weakness." Jessa felt a profound wave of understanding. He wasn't just a brutal warrior. He was a deeply wounded man convinced of his own unworthiness, forever trying to atone by throwing himself into danger. His primal possessiveness was rooted in the fear of failing her, the way he felt he had failed the pack before. Jessa finished cleaning the wound and applied her own simple poultice of stored herbs. She didn't use her Luna power. She used her hands, her breath, and her empathy. "Your scars don't define your worth, Dax," she said, her voice firm. They define your survival. You are the strongest man in this pack because you faced their judgment and kept fighting. Dax stared at her, his stormy gray eyes wide, a flicker of something raw and hopeful passing between them. No one had ever spoken to him that way. No one had ever touched his wound without fear or judgment. He reached up, his large, trembling hand cupping her cheek. His scent shifted, losing the edge of iron and becoming something dark, rich, and intensely vulnerable. "You see me," he whispered, the realization a painful, glorious thing. Jessa leaned into his palm, confirming the connection. "I see you, warrior." The air between them charged with an intimacy deeper than the rushed heat of the previous day. This bond was built on shared secrets and mutual recognition of pain. Dax closed the distance, not with the aggressive heat of Ryker, nor the soft devotion of Liam, but with a necessary, careful tenderness. His kiss was hesitant at first, a soft press of lips, searching. Then, as Jessa returned the kiss with a matching depth of empathy, Dax let go. He crushed her to his chest, his arms wrapping around her with a fierce, possessive need that was no longer about guarding her, but about finding refuge in her. The contact wasn't just physical, it was a profound spiritual exchange. Jessa felt the centuries of the pack's pain and the warrior's sacrifice rush through the bond. In return, Dax felt the calming, healing light of her Luna power, a balm to his scarred soul. The kiss broke, and Dax rested his forehead against hers, breathing heavily. "I will never fail you," he vowed, his voice thick with devotion. "I will tear apart the world to keep you safe." Jessa nodded, breathless, and they remained entwined in the silent storage shed, the primal warrior finally allowing himself to be healed by the Luna he was sworn to protect. The silent vow had been made. Jessa now had Ryker's dominant claim, Liam's gentle devotion, and Dax's absolute, vulnerable commitment. Her heart was impossibly full and terribly confused. Chapter 6: The Rival's Trap. The morning after Dax's emotional breakthrough, the atmosphere in the Alpha Den was thick with silent accusations and jealousy. Ryker sensed the shift in Dax, a dangerous softening toward Jessa, and his aggression spiked. Liam watched the interactions, his gentle demeanor masking a growing, anxious possessiveness. Jessa felt the weight of their combined, conflicting desires. Her heart still hammered with the memory of Dax's desperate kiss, yet her mind was preoccupied with Ryker's tactical demands and Liam's emotional needs. The fragile tension was shattered when a runner arrived, bearing a sealed, scented letter. Ryker snatched it, his eyes narrowed as he read the rival Alpha Silas's precise, arrogant script. "It's an invitation," Ryker announced, tearing the parchment in half. "He wants a parley, at the border stream tomorrow at dusk. He calls it a meeting between the two Lunas to discuss the future of the territory." "He's mocking us," Liam said, his voice unusually sharp. "He knows Jessa is merely the prophesied Luna. He's trying to legitimize his claim." "It's a trap," Dax growled from his post, the word a stone on the floor. "Of course it's a trap," Ryker slammed his fist on the table. "He wants to isolate her. He wants to see if our pack will truly back a human female. We reject it. The parley is off." "No," Jessa said, stepping forward. All three men turned to her, startled by the strength in her voice. "We accept the parley." Ryker turned on her, his dominant energy spiking. "You will not defy me. You are not trained for this kind of political maneuvering." "I am trained for negotiation, Alpha," Jessa countered, channeling the cool, sharp logic of her former CEO life. "Silas wants us to be predictable. He wants us to attack or to retreat. If we refuse, he claims moral high ground and uses our fear as propaganda. If I meet him, I take his move and use it against him." She walked right up to the desk, standing toe-to-toe with the imposing Alpha in training. "You told me I was the key to this pack's survival. Keys need to be used, Ryker. I will go, but I need your guarantee. You, Liam, and Dax will accompany me. We present a unified, unbreakable front." The challenge in her eyes was too much for Ryker to ignore. He realized that retreating was conceding. He was forced to respect the decisive, cold logic of her plan. "Fine," he ground out, the word tasting like ash. "But you do not speak unless I command it." Liam stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on Jessa's shoulder. "We will be your shields, Jessa. We won't let him near you." Dax simply positioned himself behind her, his hand resting on the hilt of his knife, his silence a more potent threat than any vow. The three protectors were united, not by choice, but by the necessity of guarding their shared mate. The next evening, the air at the border stream was heavy with anticipation. Jessa stood in the center, flanked by her three formidable mates. Ryker was on her left, radiating raw, challenging aggression. Liam was on her right, his gaze sweeping the trees for threats. Dax was a few feet behind her, his gray eyes piercing the twilight gloom, a sentinel waiting for the first wrong move. Silas arrived with only two of his subordinates, a calculated effort to appear non-threatening. He was handsome, with a manipulative charm that Jessa instinctively recognized as dangerous. "Welcome, Luna Jessa," Silas purred, his smile never reaching his eyes. "You defy my expectations, and you bring such excellent bodyguards." "You invited the Luna to a political meeting, Silas," Jessa replied, her voice calm and level. "She requires her delegation." Silas dismissed her with a wave of his hand. "Let us dispense with the human customs. We both know the truth. You are merely a vessel for an ancient prophecy, a human wearing a crown that belongs to a true wolf." He then turned his full, sneering attention to Ryker. "You disgrace your father's memory, Ryker. You settle for a fragile, magic-dependent consort when you could have a powerful, loyal mate from one of the other houses." The insult was designed to provoke Ryker into a rage that would break the parley. It worked. Ryker's hands clenched, and a guttural, furious sound escaped his chest. He took a menacing step towards Silas, his alpha power rising. Just as Ryker was about to ruin the carefully constructed unity, Jessa acted. She did not use magic, she used her bond. She reached out to Ryker, but this time she didn't send calm. She sent a sharp, mental image. "Ryker, look at the trees behind him. He's waiting for you to strike." Ryker faltered, his eyes flicking to the area Jessa had indicated. He saw a slight, unnatural stillness in the foliage, more wolves hiding. Silas was waiting for the fight. His rage deflated into cold calculation. Ryker took a steadying breath, forced his wolf down, and retreated a step. Silas, sensing the checkmate, tried to regain control by redirecting his manipulation, this time toward the weakest link, Liam. "And you, Liam," Silas scoffed. "Do you truly kneel before this woman? You were a fine beta, but you serve her only as a nursemaid, offering comfort while the real men decide the future." Liam's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Dax moved. He was faster than a heartbeat. He stepped out from behind Jessa, placing himself directly in front of the Luna, his scarred face close to Silas's. His knife remained sheathed, but the sheer, lethal promise in his stance was terrifying. "Walk away, Alpha," Dax rasped, his voice raw with primal warning. "This pack's future is our command. You leave Jessa alone." Silas paled, recognizing the raw, animalistic threat of the warrior's devotion. He realized Jessa was not fragile. She was the eye of a powerful, four-person storm. He gave a mocking bow. "Very well, Luna. You have proven yourself to be more protected than I anticipated. This is not over." Silas turned and disappeared into the trees. Jessa's legs were shaking. She had survived her first confrontation, and in doing so, had forced her three warring protectors to act as a seamless unit. They had failed to break her spirit, and in return, she had forced the alpha, the beta, and the warrior to fight, side by side, for her. She looked at her three mates, Ryker, his eyes still burning with suppressed violence, Liam, his face alight with pride, and Dax, already retreating to the shadows, his duty fulfilled. The bonds were tightening, making a choice utterly impossible. Chapter 7. Consequences and Confession. The air in the Alpha Den was quiet that night, but the silence was dangerous. It was the quiet before a thunderclap. The success of the parley had forced the pack to respect Jessa, but it had also pushed her three protectors to the breaking point. They gathered in the main room, not for a meal or strategy, but for a confrontation. Jessa sat stiffly on the sofa. Ryker stood before her, his arms crossed, a muscle twitching in his jaw. Liam paced by the hearth, unable to settle. Dax stood near the window, his eyes watchful, his usual silence amplified by the night's tension. "You risked too much today," Ryker finally stated, his voice tight with suppressed fear and anger. "You drew Silas out and exposed yourself. My authority was undermined when you ordered us to accompany you." "The pack is safer now than it was yesterday," Jessa countered calmly. "And I did not undermine your authority, Alpha. I use the only authority I have, the prophecy. If I am the key, I decide which lock to open." "And what of our authority?" Liam burst out, his kindness finally cracking. He walked to Jessa, his hands gripping her shoulders. "You sent us a feeling, a command during the parley. You manipulated our instincts to calm Ryker and protect yourself. That's not a partnership, Jessa. That's control." The accusation stung, but it was fair. "I used my bond with you to bring clarity, Liam. I didn't want Ryker's rage to get you all killed." "And me?" Dax's voice was a low, dangerous growl, demanding to be acknowledged. "You touched my arm, you soothed the burn from the silver, but you leave me standing on the outside. You force me to watch my rivals touch you, heal you, command you. You think you can keep the warrior on a leash." The fury was palpable. Jessa realized they weren't debating strategy. They were demanding she choose a single, exclusive path. Ryker stepped forward, dominating the space. "This ends now. The prophecy names a Luna, not a harem. Your divided focus is a weakness Silas will exploit. You need a singular alpha to lead you, and it is me. You must choose one of us to be your true, bound mate. Liam can be beta, Dax can be captain, but you will be mine." Liam stepped in front of Jessa, placing himself between her and Ryker, a profound act of defiance. "No, the bond with me is one of trust and tenderness. That's what this pack is missing. You are too much alpha, Ryker. Jessa needs balance. If she must choose, she should choose the one who respects her heart, not just her power." Dax simply watched them fight, but his eyes were fixed entirely on Jessa, his silent intensity screaming, "Choose me. I will kill for you." Jessa stood up, the overwhelming force of their combined rage, fear, and possessiveness making her head swim. This was the moment of truth. She couldn't give them a lie. She had to give them the truth of the Luna's heart. "You are right," Jessa whispered, the confession a heavy weight on her tongue. "I cannot choose." Their combined sense of expectation instantly turned to shock. "Why?" Ryker demanded, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Is your bond with one of us weaker?" "No," Jessa replied, her voice gaining strength as the truth settled her inner conflict. "It's because the bond with each of you is essential. It's not divided love, it's a necessary three-part whole." She looked at each man, explaining her revelation. "Ryker, I need your dominance and your strategy. You are the alpha, the cold steel that holds the line. You keep us alive. Liam, I need your devotion and your calm. You are the heart of this pack, the foundation of kindness that keeps me human and sane. Dax, I need your protection and your sacrificial commitment. You see my truth, and you are the only one who reminds me that survival is worth the fight." She took a deep breath, her eyes blazing with Luna power. "This pack is fragmented. It is a broken circle of dominance, kindness, and trauma. I am the Luna who was prophesied to unite it. How can I possibly unite three broken parts if I reject one of my own fated mates? The prophecy demands I take all three of you." The room was silent. The truth of her words, the terrifying logic of a three-part bond, settled over the three wolves. They weren't rivals, they were necessary components of her power. Ryker, the strategist, was the first to realize the implications. If the prophecy requires three, Silas will be targeting us as a unit. Dax, the protector, stepped forward, his eyes never leaving Jessa's. "Our strength is in being three shields. No one can break through." Liam, the devoted heart, simply walked to Jessa and took her hand. "We fought Silas today as a unit without a verbal command. We already are Jessa." Jessa squeezed Liam's hand, then looked back at Ryker and Dax. The jealousy hadn't vanished, but it was suddenly eclipsed by a new, massive wave of mutual need and a dangerous sense of collective destiny. They had their answer. They were bound not by choice, but by fate and the needs of their divided pack. Now, all four of them had to face the consequences of accepting a triple bond that no pack law had ever accounted for. Chapter 8. The Battle for the Pack. The attack came just before midnight, not as a stealthy ambush, but as a full-scale assault designed to terrorize. Silas and his rival wolves charged the compound, their howls ripping through the night, a sound meant to shatter the fragmented pack's resolve. In the alpha den, the four of them moved with chilling, practiced synchronicity, their individual roles clear. Ryker was instantly in command, barking tactical orders at the runners, his cold, calculating mind already moving pieces across the mental battlefield. Liam worked with the elders, directing the defense of the compound's weaker points and calming the terrified civilians. Dax, however, stayed rooted to the spot, his eyes fixed on Jessa. "You stay with me," he rasped, drawing his knife. "I am your shield, you focus your power." Jessa nodded, her fear replaced by a fierce determination. She understood her role. She was the power source, the hub of their unique, four-part weapon. The fighting was brutal. Silas's wolves were aggressive and numerous, and soon the battle spilled into the open compound. Ryker was a force of nature, his wolf form a blur of gold and gray dominance, matching Silas in raw power, but his forces were stretched thin. Jessa felt Ryker's energy begin to fray through their bond, a spike of physical exhaustion and tactical frustration. "He's overextending," Jessa muttered. "He needs support." Dax grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the thickest part of the fighting. "Go." This was the moment of the triple claim. Jessa closed her eyes, channeling her Luna energy, that clean, vibrant counterforce to Silas's darkness, not as a weapon, but as an amplifier. She focused first on Ryker. She poured raw, invigorating strength into their bond, boosting his stamina and honing his fighting focus. She heard his triumphant roar as his strength surged, allowing him to drive Silas back from a critical breach in the line. Next, she found Liam, who was tirelessly protecting the non-combatants, his body growing weary from repeated defensive maneuvers. Jessa sent him warmth and unwavering courage. Liam straightened, his gentle wolf form turning into an immovable bastion of defense, his movements becoming precise and effective. Finally, she focused on Dax, who was fighting a small group of Silas's wolves single-handedly. She didn't send him strength, she sent him healing, a cool, steadying balm over his inner wounds. The scars on his face seemed to tighten, and he fought with a terrifying, absolute clarity, no longer driven by self-loathing, but by devotion. Silas, seeing his enemies suddenly revitalized, realized the source of their power. He broke away from his battle with Ryker and charged straight at Jessa and Dax. "The source of your power dies now," Silas roared, shifting mid-stride, his fangs bared. Dax threw Jessa behind him, placing his entire body between her and the rival Alpha. He was ready to die to protect her. But Jessa wasn't finished. Seeing the ultimate threat, she drew the full force of her Luna power, the unified strength of her three mates. She unleashed a directed, blinding wave of energy. It wasn't physical, it was psychic force, a stunning blow to Silas's aggressive mind. Silas staggered back, clutching his head, his aggression momentarily neutralized. "You lose, Alpha," Ryker's deep voice boomed, capitalizing on the moment. He struck hard, felling Silas with a final, decisive blow that ended the conflict. The remaining rival wolves, scenting their Alpha's defeat, broke and ran into the night. Jessa collapsed, exhausted but exhilarated, her three mates converging on her in an immediate, possessive wave. Ryker was the first to reach her, his breathing ragged, his Alpha scent thick with victory and primal need. He scooped her into his arms, crushing her against his sweat-slicked chest, his wolf whimpering with relief. "You are reckless, brilliant but reckless. Never do that again." Liam knelt by her side, his gaze filled with awe and profound pride. He gently cradled her face. "You saved us, Jessa. You truly are the Lunar of the prophecy." Dax simply stood over them, his knife still drawn, his eyes scanning the retreating shadows. He didn't touch her, but his silent, powerful presence was the final anchor. He was the most fiercely claimed, his loyalty cemented by the life-or-death moment she had shared with him. Jessa looked up at the three men, one a dominant leader, one a gentle caretaker, and one a silent sentinel, all united by her power. They had fought, they had won, and the triple bond was sealed not by a vow but by shared blood and victory. The pack was safe, but the work was far from over. She now had 3 alphas to contend with, and they had a pack to rebuild. Chapter 9: The New Luna and the Promise. The aftermath of the battle was slow, bloody work. The wounded were tended, the dead were mourned, and a new, potent scent hung over the compound. The metallic tang of old blood mixed with the fierce, clean ozone of Jessa's Luna power. 2 hours after the enemy retreated, Jessa was back in the den, exhausted and cleaned, wrapped in a heavy furs. She sat alone, waiting. Soon the door opened, and her 3 mates walked in, no longer frantic fighters, but weary, magnificent wolves who had just survived a war. Ryker was the first to speak. He didn't approach. He simply stood tall, his eyes holding a profound new respect. "We won because of you, Luna. Your power was the anchor, and your strategy to use us all as one unit was sound." "It's not strategy, Ryker," Jessa murmured, looking up at him. "It's the truth of the bond. I need your dominance to lead, Liam's devotion to heal, and Dax's protection to hold the line. I cannot be whole without all 3. Liam walked forward and knelt gently at her feet, taking her hand. His warmth was a stark contrast to the cold in the room. "The pack saw it, Jessa. When you amplified us, we felt the connection, a complete circuit. We were jealous fools, trying to claim a part of you when destiny decreed you needed all of us." He kissed her knuckles, his devotion absolute. "I accept the bond. I accept our truth." The silence stretched as all eyes turned to Dax. He remained near the entrance, his arms crossed, his gaze heavy with intensity. He was the hardest to convince, the most scarred. "You are safer this way," Dax stated, his voice a low, steady rumble. "I can guard your spirit from the inside while I guard your body from the outside. I accept the burden. I am your shield, Luna, and theirs." Ryker walked over to Jessa, his dominant scent spiking again, but this time it was laced with acceptance. He reached out, not to command her, but to gently cup the back of her neck, a tender, powerful gesture of claim and submission to the greater bond. "The prophecy names a Luna, but it doesn't name a limit to her mates," Ryker conceded, his eyes shining with alpha fire and reluctant love. "You are our center. The 3 of us will lead this pack, but you will be the final authority. We are yours." The agreement was sealed, not with a ceremonial ring, but with the mutual acceptance of their impossible, powerful relationship. The next morning, the entire fragmented pack gathered, solemn and battered. Ryker, standing at the head, began the speech, but Jessa stepped forward and placed a hand on his arm, silently taking her place. "You have all fought bravely," Jessa said, her voice clear and carrying. "But you fought divided. You fought with old grudges and divided loyalties." She gestured to her side, where her 3 mates stood, Ryker, Liam, and Dax, united and unwavering. "The prophecy was not a sign of the past. It was a promise for the future," she proclaimed. "The Alpha's authority will be shared, led by 3 mates whose strengths ensure this pack is never again weak." She looked directly at the crowd, her Luna power swelling outward, silencing all doubt. "We are bound by fate. We are bound by fire. I am your Luna, and these 3 men are my strength. Any challenge to one is a challenge to all 4. Our pack is unified now, not by fear, but by a triple bond stronger than any single alpha." The crowd erupted, not in anger, but in relief and acceptance. The war was over, and the new era had begun. Later that night, with the compound finally quiet, the 4 of them stood in Jessa's bedroom. The single queen-sized bed suddenly seemed to hold immense significance. "The politics are settled," Jessa whispered, turning to face them. "Now we settle the bond." Ryker stepped forward first, his eyes dark with unleashed dominance, tearing at the tunic she wore. "You claimed us, Luna. Now you must bind us." Liam followed, his hands gently removing the last of her clothes, his devotion a silent, passionate promise. "Show us the love we fought for." Dax simply watched, his gaze burning with the intensity of a man who had waited his entire life to claim his destiny. When the moment was right, he moved to the bed, pulled back the furs, and lay down, an invitation that was both desperate and absolute. The four of them came together, not in a chaotic explosion of passion, but in a deliberate, sensual merging of their powers. Ryker's demands, Liam's softness, and Dax's fervent need combined into a unified expression of their fate. It was a binding ritual of flesh and soul, the final, passionate promise of the reluctant Luna and her three absolute protectors. Chapter 10, The Triumphant Luna. 6 months after the victory over Seela's, the Alpha Den finally felt like home. The atmosphere, once thick with tension and conflicting territorial sense, now hummed with a powerful, harmonious energy. The pack had settled, their loyalty rooted in the undeniable strength of their four-part leadership. Jessa stood on the veranda, watching the evening training. Her Luna power, once a frightening novelty, now felt like a second skin, a warm, steady current always connected to her mates. Ryker was leading the drills. He remained the alpha, sharp and demanding, but his dominance was tempered by a new patience. He was no longer fighting for control, but using his strength to build. When he barked a command, Jessa amplified the certainty of the order, making his leadership absolute and unquestioned. When the training ended, Liam was the one who approached the exhausted wolves first. He brought water, shared a joke, and tended to the minor scrapes, ensuring the morale remained high. He was the pack's heart, and his devotion to Jessa anchored their emotional stability. His touch, always gentle, was a soft promise of unconditional love in their shared intimacy. As the sun dipped below the trees, Dax appeared, having finished his solitary patrols. He walked straight to Jessa, his scarred face unreadable, and draped a heavy, familiar fur cape over her shoulders. It was his way of stating his claim. "You are warm, safe, and protected." The silent ferocity of his need was a private, vital current in their triple bond. They came together in the fading light. 3 different men, 3 different strengths, all drawn to the powerful woman at the center. "The new treaty with the southern packs is ready for your seal, Luna," Ryker informed her, his voice conveying respect for her final authority. "The herbal supplies are secured for the winter," Liam reported, his smile warm and proud. "The borders are quiet," Dax affirmed, his voice a low, gravelly counterpoint to the others. "Then all is well," Jessa concluded, leaning back against Ryker's solid chest, reaching out to take Liam's hand and feeling the steady, unwavering heat of Dax at her side. She realized the beauty of their why choose. Fate. She hadn't been forced to sacrifice one part of herself for the others. She had been given the rare opportunity to become whole. In the bedroom later, the triple bond was celebrated in a quiet, passionate ritual that had become their own. The physical act was an affirmation of their unity, blending Ryker's commanding heat, Liam's tender desire, and Dax's fervent, primal need. As the night deepened, Jessa lay nestled between them, one hand resting on Ryker's dominant shoulder, one leg tangled with Liam's supportive frame, and the warmth of Dax's protective arm a permanent weight across her waist. She smiled. The prophecy had been fulfilled. The fragmented pack was whole, led by a Luna who had accepted her magic, embraced her power, and in doing so, had claimed 3 alpha mates to be her protectors, her lovers, and her destiny. The pack was safe, the Luna was triumphant, and the reign of the alpha mates had just begun.